like Sisyphus, we're back to being rolled over by GQ. In my last video with Mr. Cohen, I had mentioned that I was a subscriber on my personal account. It pains me to have unsubscribed there and resubscribed here. I was searching for videos to respond to, but when I saw this, I had to go round two. Generally, I like to pick videos which are themselves self-refuting, or laced with so much hypocrisy that the response is easy. Of course, because I'm lazy, but moreover because if I can see the hypocrisy easily, then perhaps it's easier to show it to all of you as well. As unfortunately usual, let me say, I am not a supporter of Ron DeSantis. I do not support the GOP. I do not have any personal dislike for Mr. Cohen. Although I have been to Florida several times, it holds no special place in my heart, positively nor negatively. These boxer short videos are not about me, not about my personal feelings nor leanings. They're about us, or at least so they're intended. I want to help fix the problems in Florida. I want to help fix the problems in the USA. I want to help fix the problems outside the USA. The problem isn't Mr. Cohen. His personal freedom to make videos is something I support. The problem isn't Ron DeSantis, for whom the people of Florida voted. I don't think I could change their minds even if I tried, and so I don't try to change people's minds. I rather try to point out examples of poor logic, bad critical thinking, one-sided arguments. With this method, it is hoped that those who follow these clowns, be it Mr. Cohen or indeed Mr. DeSantis, can perhaps see a different side, a fresh look that hopefully will push them towards a more nuanced position. On every topic. Push the rock, Afy. Push the damn rock. I think Sisyphus might be a bit of a misnomer.
6 weeks ago, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' re-election campaign committee started selling shirts and more that say, "Don't Fauci my Florida," and attacking what he called Faucism.
I would certainly agree that this kind of infantile marketing campaign is not helpful. It attempts to be cute and funny at the expense of the actual important topic at hand. Personally, I would prefer something like "Fauci is a fibber" or "The doctor has deceived," in regards to his early handling of the "to mask or not to mask, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous shaming from the left, or get one's butt handed to them by a sea of debacle." I, like a great many people I would expect, don't like being lied to. Once I am lied to, overtly and with premeditation, I'm not likely to trust that person again. Dr. Fauci may very well be the most capable virologist in the world, but I have trouble trusting him given his past inability to process information and relay that information truthfully. I know a great many occupations where misinformation of this magnitude would get one fired, but I can only think of one group of jobs where this is most often not the case. Politicians, and the ones they promote.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet.
This is exactly what my videos are trying to illustrate. Many would come back and say, as more information came out, Fauci followed the science. But these people do not understand two things: epistemology and science. Let's start with science. It does not matter what one doctor says. It does not matter what 200 scientists say. It only matters what the evidence points at, or away from. If you claim to follow the science and do not have any evidence nor statistics, then you're not following the science. You are following an argument from authority. Furthermore, if you dismiss or do not allow conversation on any of the evidence or statistics, then you are not doing science. You are, in fact, anti-science. Second, epistemology. There is a world of difference between saying we have no evidence that masks are useful and saying people should not be walking around wearing a mask. In the first case, an acceptable translation might be something like, we do not know if masks are useful or not. In this case, people can make their own choices as to whether to wear them or not. In the second case, an acceptable translation may be something like, there is evidence that suggests that masks don't help. These two ideas are very different. If Dr. Fauci had such evidence, he should have presented it. Him not presenting this evidence, making a claim that turns out to be absolutely false, and then trying to weasel out of it by saying new information was found, is an atrocious failure of a claim to knowledge. Yeah, everyone makes mistakes, sure, but this was not a mistake. It was a lie.
You can get protected. Now, early on, when we were in a situation in which there was a real concern about the lack of personal protective equipment on the part of the health providers who needed it, who put themselves in harm's way every day to take care of people who were ill with this virus, that we were thinking we would run out of masks and other things for them. So the recommendation was not to wear a mask because of the shortage of it.
If Fauci was not lying here, which may be hard to believe given Beelzebub here, to whom he is talking, then this is what he should have reported before. It wasn't. He said, people should not be walking around wearing masks. This is the literal definition of misinformation. While talking to the illegitimate offspring of Hitler and a transvestite Stalin who claims he is trying to stop misinformation. As a side note, if anyone can mention a politician who has not lied, misinformed, or weaseled out of a question, please do. I may very well be swayed into voting for said pink unicorn. Let's leave the doctor. Back to stupid slogans and the capitalism and partisanship that inspired them. A couple of points here. First, anyone can make any damn slogan they like and then try to make money off of selling it. There may be some who try to stop this based on hateful or harmful grounds, which seems to fall squarely within their rights as well. Secondly, I would think that if you are against Mr. DeSantis' slogans, consistency may force you into being against the anti-Trump or anti-police ones as well. Oh, sorry, I forgot. You clowns in the news have no interest in being consistent, aside maybe from being consistently one-sided in your approach to information. Shame. And no, this is not a tu quoque fallacy. I'm not saying that DeSantis' slogans are good or fine or funny or appropriate. I'm literally saying the opposite. They are harmful and cheap, just like the reporting of Fox News, CNN, and indeed Mr. Cohen's videos. So what am I trying to do here? I'm simply trying to show the one-sided nature of the evidence being pointed at here. It seems like if you wanted to be fair and honest, you would point out that many different groups, just like your very own news agency, does this exact same thing. They promote or try to disparage one group or another with an oversimplification of an issue. These can sometimes cause great harm, which DeSantis' slogan is almost certainly doing. But can you seriously not think of any other examples? I'm willing to bet that you can, but it doesn't fit your narrative to mention them, so no point in talking about how harmful these slogans are in general. We're only attacking one person today. It's rather akin to not talking about sexism when a woman is treated as anything less than the equivalent of a man. We can and should call out this example, but it is the context that the issue resides in that must be fixed, not merely the example itself.
Now, just in the 6 weeks since the governor's re-election campaign launched those products, more than 5,000 Floridians have died of coronavirus.
Look, I'll go ahead and accept those numbers without even checking them, because post hoc ergo propter hoc. This is a fallacy that states simply because two things are correlated does not mean they're causally linked. Indeed, perhaps they are linked, but perhaps they're not. You've not shown the causation. You're only implying it. You have, however, shown your inability to do your job properly, though, simply by not understanding or perhaps intentionally using basic common fallacies. People literally turn on the news to get informed, and when someone who has no concept of how to find truth is the one informing them, they're going to end up misinformed, very much like Fox News listeners. Let me give you an example that might help you to remember this fallacy, Mr. Tapper. I think we would both agree that some people who watch the news nightly are still very misinformed. I think we would both agree that there are people who watch your network nightly. You are on your network nightly. Therefore, you are the reason some people who watch the news nightly are still very misinformed. Do you see how this could be false? Perhaps they watch other networks. Do you see how, well, this could be true? No? Well, tap like and subscribe, my tapping man. It's a bit of a goal around here. At any rate, the fallacy means that just because two things happen to correlate does not mean that one causes the other.
Well, I mean, whoever is attacking me, just a reflection of the politicization of what should be a purely public health issue.
Yeah, it should be a public health issue, but there exist some problems. Look, this is not about you, it's about my boy GQ. But I would suggest the largest one is that people have lost trust in you. Sharing all accurate, pertinent information is absolutely required by your ilk. Suppressing information is not permissible by your ilk. If you want to regain trust, perhaps try sharing all information openly instead of saying, "Trust me, I'm Dr. Fauci." I'm afraid you've lost that privilege in a great many people's eyes. As for me, you didn't lose that privilege. You never had it. I understand science and epistemology. I'm uninterested in arguments from authority, even if it is a reasonable authority. I'm interested in the evidence. If you don't give it or have it, I don't give a damn what you believe.
Right, because if there's anyone on the face of the earth who should be criticizing medical professionals, it's the guy in charge of the state that's become the epicenter of this pandemic.
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by epicenter. I worry that it sounds like the arguments made last summer regarding the BLM activities, whether they were a riot or a protest. It's more important what is happening, rather than what we name it. Unfortunately, there are a great many who like to try to sway opinion by carefully choosing these words to convince people who just don't seem to notice it. People, some of whom, like to only paint cops as heroes, and the rest only paint them as villains. Both of these groups are wrong and harmful. There exist both heroes and villains among the ranks of police and every other profession, I would expect. Nuance, please, GQ. You argue like a child who will do anything to get a cookie, not like a person interested in helping. I worry that you're using this word to do just that. An epicenter is the central point of something. As of August 30th, the date I believe your video went up, the rate of coronavirus cases in America by state puts North Dakota as the epicenter, followed by Rhode Island in second, and then Florida coming in as third. Perhaps you don't mean the rate of the virus as the determining factor. Perhaps you meant the death rate. Well, again, as of August 30th, the date your video went up, New Jersey, New York, and Mississippi round off the top three positions, and Florida comes in at number 20. Well, perhaps you meant by hospital space, although that doesn't seem like an intelligent way to determine the epicenter. At any rate, Florida has one of the largest elderly populations of any state, and has the 16th most ICU hospital beds of any state. Unfortunately, if you mean by hospital space, you would have to look at New York, Texas, and then California before finding Florida at number 4. If there's some other metric that I'm missing here, I would love to hear about it. The death, the virus, the loss. It is indeed terrible in Florida. It is really bad in a lot of places. If DeSantis is to blame for the cases in his state, who's to blame for the higher number of cases in some other states? Or who is to blame in the countries which have lower numbers of cases but don't have the medical infrastructure to follow the same guidelines as in the US? I worry that you will use your whataboutism line on me. You have to remember that the tu quoque fallacy is turning the criticism back on the accuser. The reason this is a fallacy is it doesn't address the first criticism. This is not what I'm doing. I fully agree with the first criticism. Ron DeSantis is, in my opinion, doing a very bad job at leading his state. My goal here isn't to defend Mr. DeSantis. My goal is to attack your childish attack on him. I guess you may say something like, "Oh no, I'm the epicenter of Afy's ire." But no, you're just another puppet trying to create his own theater. No Prince Hamlet, nor will you ever be. An attendant bore, one that will do to push a button, dupe a fool or two. Full of high sentence, but more than a bit obtuse. Afternoons and coffee spoons, GQ.
Now, just for some context here, Florida currently leads the entire nation in hospitalizations, with over 16,000 Floridians hospitalized, where 95% of the state's ICU beds are currently filled.
Interesting. I found data that suggests Florida is not the leading state in hospitalizations. And you seem to be suggesting that Florida is leading the U.S. in hospitalizations. I guess this is where most would say something like, "Your stats are garbage." And although you may be claiming that about mine, I would say yours are 100% accurate. I would further say that mine are 100% accurate. And I would finally say mine are better, and you are either a misleading con man or a bumbling idiot. Either way, please do us all a favor and learn a bit. Your number is the total number of people in hospital beds in Florida. My number is a rating per 10,000 people. We can't compare Florida, which has the third highest population, with the other 40-odd states unless we account for their population difference. Please learn how to use statistics before attempting to use them. At this stage, you're being very misleading. You know, promoting misinformation. Before we move on, the number of ICU beds filled is also a bit misleading. What problems do the people filling them have? Surely many of them have COVID, and that is terrible. But certainly not all of them do. If you want to use statistics, you need to use them correctly and honestly. You seem unable to do either.
Florida's also set an all-time record for new cases, with more than 27,000, bringing the weekly number of new cases to over 150,000 for the third straight week.
Yes, Florida has set a new record with cases. Every time they get more cases than they previously had, that is a new record. You understand how records work, right? When you beat yourself... Never mind. Look, every state breaks a record for this. If they had the virus, then the numbers go up, they break a record. This is not news, GQ. This is how records work. In this case, it's a terrible record. There are other worse ones, but I understand you don't want to talk about those. Get back on that horse, GQ, so I can watch you fall off again.
Meaning kids' lives are being jeopardized because of the leadership's incompetence.
I can find lots of information on children getting COVID, but I wasn't able to find any that breaks that down by state. So you seem to be assuming a bunch here. One, you seem to be assuming that Florida has the majority, or at least a large percentage, of these children cases. This might be a good assumption, as Florida is among the highest of the states in terms of the virus, not, as you, however, say, the epicenter. You seem to further be assuming that the reason these kids, which you do not know anything about and have no stats on, got COVID as a direct result from Mr. DeSantis' policies. This could certainly be true. I would agree that masks would help prevent the spread. Are there no other potential means by which they got it? Are the numbers of children getting it in Florida similar or drastically higher than in other states? Do you have any evidence to show us at all? No? Look, this isn't really about how they got it or who they are. This is about epistemology. You're making a claim, and your evidence to back that claim is, well, non-existent. It leads me to wonder if you're trying to help the children or trying to lash out at a politician. Look, I know lots of pieces of human excrement politicians we can smash together. But you have to learn how to be honest and how to argue first. We could even start with DeSantis if you like. Call it an olive branch.
The fact that Ron DeSantis' response is to attack the nation's premier immunologist?
Here you go again. Picking words to imply blame when your words do not match the situation. DeSantis didn't make a response, as you put it. A response, you may be interested in knowing, is an answer or a reaction to something. You would be correct if you said that DeSantis is attacking Fauci, but you didn't even play a video of DeSantis at all, let alone him answering a question. In order to make your statement true, you would need to have someone ask DeSantis about the COVID cases in Florida, and have him dodge the question and attack Fauci instead. I don't know if such a video exists or not, but it really wouldn't surprise me if it does. The problem, though, again, is your dishonesty. If you want to help at all, Lying about DeSantis is not going to alter the opinions of those who agree with him. Do better.
To watch your state turn into the epicenter of what is now an avoidable pandemic.
An avoidable pandemic? Please let me know how this pandemic is avoidable. Given that it already exists everywhere, save perhaps a few islands, how can any country that has it possibly avoid it? It appears you have a BA in English? I think you should return it to the Jolly Rancher factory. Perhaps you meant containable, manageable, controllable. Even if that is the case, please tell us how so many countries all over the world, and indeed states in the US, can control it. As far as I can see, it has gone up and down in various parts of the US and all over the world over the past too damn long. There are lots of measures we can take, and are taking. Some, very much like DeSantis, are slowing this down. You know what a larger problem than COVID is? You! Or rather how you fling claims left and right with no concept of honesty or truth. This is the same reason we have almost all the problems we have in the world today. Flat earthers, anti-vaxxers, the list goes on and on. People don't know how to come to truth. And you are actually promoting this ignorance with your lack of critical thinking, knowledge of epistemology, and your glaring dishonesty. You calling it avoidable is incorrect, insincere, dishonest, and spreading misinformation. Anyone with a BA in English should know that.
In fact, judging by what DeSantis is actually doing, you would think he was trying to entrench this pandemic.
Only if you don't understand how statistics work. You have to take population into account.
The governor of the state with the most cases and hospitalizations in the entire United States was using his power to not only relax measures that would help rein in this pandemic, but punish those who do want to make an effort to keep people safe.
I want to keep people safe. I think you are harmful to the education of America. I would prefer you be removed from your position, or at the very least, are forced to get a decent education before continuing in your bumbling quest. I'm willing to bet you would want to punish me in some way for trying to help the educational development of Americans, and all of your viewers. I could be wrong. Perhaps you're the forgiving type.
Everyone seems to be focused on helping people survive other than DeSantis.
I don't think you are focused on helping people survive, although it may be one of your goals. By watching your videos, it's my opinion that you're focused on being a one-sided opinion piece writer without the necessary skills to argue a star into shining. But that's just my appraisal of the situation.
Goes to show just how much of a problem it is to have a governor more interested in getting his Fox News hits on a nightly basis than in helping keep the people of his own state, including children, alive.
I have to agree. DeSantis seems more interested in being known than in actually doing good work. What was the title of your trash again? Ron DeSantis gets dismantled on national TV? Who did the dismantling? You? Not sure this is national TV, so you must mean Fauci. Let's watch the beginning of your video.
Well, I mean, whoever is attacking me, just a reflection of the politicization of what should be a purely public health issue. And it's really unfortunate. You know, they're attacking personally me because I'm a visible person, but I'm merely articulating the proper public health practices that are recommended strongly by an organization, and that organization is the CDC. So they like to pick out a certain person because they could make that person, you know, the personification of political divides, which is so unfortunate, Jake. We should put all of that aside.
Perhaps we could rename your video something like Mr. Cohen dismantles himself while not understanding irony.
Now, as far as what Dr. Fauci said concerning the right choosing someone to personify political divides, this is what the right has always done. This has always been their MO.
Excuse me.
This is exactly why the GOP is still, to this day, attacking Hillary Clinton.
And who are the left still attacking to this day? And who are you still attacking? And who am I, well, attacking again? We go after the things we think are bad. When we care, we try to fix them. In order to make this change, we need to change the minds of those who disagree with us. Now, to be clear, I'm not trying to change your mind. I haven't seen you demonstrate any ability that would make me think you're capable of open, honest dialogue. I have seen poor arguments, misuse of language, and misinformation. I don't think you're ready to have a grown-up conversation. So instead, I focus on trying to show you your mistakes. Perhaps in so doing, one day you'll be ready to sit at the big table. At that time, you would find out that I actually agree with the idea that DeSantis is hurting people. Between now and then, I'm not sure which of you is more dangerous. How many views does your drivel get? How many people have died in Florida specifically due to DeSantis? And what is the formula to equate these two? I just don't know. I do think that DeSantis will be out of power sometime in the future. Hopefully and probably relatively soon. Unfortunately, I expect you to continue making these ridiculous hit pieces, probably changing targets, so there may indeed be more longevity to the problems you impose on humanity.
It's why they focus on Hunter Biden, because he's flawed and so they can use him as a proxy to attack Joe Biden and his policies. It's why they're focusing on the police officer who shot Ashley Babbitt, the insurrectionist who broke through a window of the Capitol on January 6th, because they can vilify him as a person to deflect the blame away from those on their own side who are literally trying to assassinate elected officials.
It is amazing to me that the irony of this isn't apparent to someone who studied languages. At any rate, you are ascribing motive. How do you know what their motives are? You're making a claim and you have zero evidence to back that claim up. You can certainly find a bunch of videos that seem like perhaps that may be a motive for some. But you're not mentioning specific people. You're referring to the right. Everyone on the right. This is why they do this. This is why they do that. Sounds like fun. Let me try. Mr. Cohen makes videos about DeSantis because DeSantis doesn't pay child support to Mr. Cohen for their love child we all know as SpongeBob. Mr. Cohen makes videos because he's making up for a lack of love in the furry friends department. He was never allowed a dog due to accidentally eating his hamster in a sandwich as a child. It isn't hard to make people look bad when we aren't interested in the truth. You know what is difficult, Mr. Cohen? Trying to see the point of view of someone you violently disagree with. Trying to understand why they think that way, and then trying to change their minds, or joining them if they are in fact correct. That is much harder. I know it is much easier just to paint everyone who disagrees with you with some horrible, ugly label. But really, it says more about you when you do this than it says about the almost half of Americans that you're talking about. Some might even consider it hate speech.
Picking out individuals and destroying their lives for their own political gain isn't just one strategy the GOP uses, it's their main strategy. They can't win on the strength of their ideas because they are woefully unpopular, so they find people whose flaws they can exploit for political gain instead. The fact is that because Ron DeSantis is more concerned with his own political ambitions than the well-being of the people he swore an oath to protect.
I'm sorry, I think I must have got a bit lost. Who are we talking about? Oh, yeah, my bad. Ron DeSantis, that's right. Only interested in his personal ambition. Disgusting to listen to, really. I have to agree. Dude is not cool at all.
So Ron DeSantis will continue to sacrifice children and students and their parents and their grandparents, all because the GOP has planted its flag as the no mask, no vaccine party. All because they've convinced themselves that letting a virus spread uncontrollably somehow means they're free and the rest of us aren't. So as we continue to needlessly lose Floridians, the people of that state should be clear-eyed about exactly who's in charge and exactly who's to blame.
So Mr. Cohen will continue to sacrifice your ability to think clearly about issues. He will misinform and teach you to use fallacious arguments, all for his personal ambition and to make a buck, while planting his flag as the only righteous, science-backed one, simultaneously refusing to actually attempt to look at the arguments and points of view of the other side, preferring rather to attack strawmen. So as we listen to others making no sense at all and refusing to argue honestly, we should know who is at least partly to blame.